Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Goldie Show, where I basically go live at 12 noon Eastern to talk about the pressing issues relating to politics, the Middle East, Islamic terrorism, and radicalism. Yesterday, we focused on radicalization in Canada, and today we're going to focus on radicalization in the United States, the hidden war. I think that is pretty fitting today, given the current elections that are happening in the United States, especially in New York City and in Minneapolis. So, I want to begin with a video that I actually played yesterday at the end of my live stream. And I'm going to start off today's live stream by sharing this video once again. It is a warning from Bridget Gabriel. Bridget is someone who um, just like many of us from the Middle East, has been a victim of Islamic terrorism, radicalism, and jihad. She is from Lebanon and she had to escape. She has been sounding the alarm and raising awareness ever since. And like many of us, she has been accused of being quote unquote Islamophobic or, whatever other nonsense that the Islamists and communists like to throw at us in order to silence us. So let's start by playing this video from Bridget Gabriel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brigitte Gabrielle. I am holding in my hand the Muslim Brotherhood Plan for North America, written in 5/22, 1991. This is their plan, titled مذكرة تفسيرية للهدف الاستراتيجي العام في أمريكا الشمالية. This is about their explanation on how they're going to take over the West, their 100-year plan to infiltrate and dominate the West and establish an Islamic government on earth. This plan was presented as evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terrorism trial ever in the history of the United States, where our government handed down 108 guilty verdicts to Muslim Americans and Muslim organizations in America, raising money in the United States and sending it overseas to support terrorist activity overseas. And I'm going to read you a paragraph about their intention in the United States and how they describe their work. Number 4 of the paragraph is titled Understanding the Role of the Muslim Brother in North America. And it says, the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which is the Arabic word for brothers, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religion. As you can see, they don't mince words. They don't beat around the bush. They tell you exactly what they want to do. They go in detail in this booklet talking about how they are going to implement their plan and the organizations that they had set up in the United States in order for them to advance their plan in America. And here are the names of some of the organizations. They give the names of 29 organizations set up in America to do that. So I'm going to read you some of the names. ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. If the name sounds familiar, it's because ISNA used to be advisors to President Obama about Middle East policy. So now you understand where signing the nuclear deal with Iran came from and why Obama was all over himself trying to appeal to the Iranian regime, even sending them pallets of cash in the middle of the night on an airplane, landing in an airport in the middle of the night, millions and billions of our tax dollars. Number 2 on the list is the MSA, the Muslim Student Association. The Muslim Student Association has chapters all over American universities. So today when you are watching all these demonstrators on our American universities screaming death to the Jews, we hate the Jews, from the river to the sea, Gaza will be free or Palestine will be free. Now you understand where that is coming from. Number 8 on the list is the North American Islamic Trust. The North American Islamic Trust owns 90% of mosques in the United States. Number 22 on the list is IAP, Islamic Association for Palestine.
Guys, I want you to pay attention to what she says about who owns 90% of the mosques because I have another video that I want to show you. Let's go back. Pay attention to that part
The
again.
river to the sea, Gaza will be free or Palestine will be free. Now you understand where that is coming from. Number 8 on the list is the North American Islamic Trust. The North American Islamic Trust owns 90% of mosques in the United States. Number 22 on the list is IAP, Islamic Association for Palestine, which later became CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, when you read all this stuff, you think to yourself, how can this happen? Does our government know about this stuff? I have been talking about these things for over 15 years. This is detailed in my book, They Must Be Stopped, which came out in 2008, detailing this plan. When I used to talk about these things, I was accused of being an Islamophobe. People called me a hater. Nobody wanted to listen. When I was warning about the Muslim student associations on college campuses and the money coming from the Middle East funding a social study department, a political science department, and appointing professors who are anti-America and anti-Israel to teach that Israel is evil, America is bad, and the Islamic world is the underdog, and the Palestinians are the oppressed, nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to pay attention. So today, when you see all these people organized on the streets in the United States, hating Israel, hating the Jewish people, hating America, tearing down American flags in the pro-Palestinian demonstrations in New York City, now you understand where that is coming from. If you want more details about this plan, you can read it through my book, They Must Be Stopped, which is available on Amazon, as well as for a donation for Act for America, tax-deductible donation. We will mail you the book so you can understand what we are dealing with. Thank you for your time.
So Bridget Gabriel does not mince words. Like, so she's a native Arabic speaker. She's Lebanese. She's been impacted by Islamic terrorism and radicalism. So, the document that she's referring to isn't something that she's made up. The document is actually something that was submitted as evidence by the FBI in a 1991 case, which I believe is one of the biggest cases where a whole bunch of Islamic terrorists were essentially found guilty of plotting Islamic terrorism, plots in the United States. And so this document was submitted by the FBI as evidence of the plan to basically import Islamic terrorism into the United States, and as Brigitte Gabriel calls it, that civilizational jihad. Now, she also continues more recently with an updated video. And this time she's referring specifically to, I believe, today's elections in New York City. So let's pay attention to what she has to say. I know a lot of you have asked me about my thoughts on, Mamdani and what's happening in the United States. I personally think it's horrifying, but again, like as a Canadian, I like to give space to Americans who know more about this and have leaned more into this topic. So Bridget Gabriel does refer to this. So let's see what she actually has to say about the ongoing elections in New York City with Mamdani.
Hello, this is Brigitte Gabriel. Zohran Mamdani, an Islamic terrorist sympathizer and democratic socialist, wants to be the mayor of New York City. A man so cozy with people that echo the ideologies behind the horror of 9/11. A vote for him is a spit in the face of every firefighter, every family who mourned, and every patriot who vowed never again. Mamdani's worldview was shaped by his father, a Columbia professor who called suicide bombers soldiers worthy of sympathy, not.
That's horrifying. They actually did uncover that. Like, Zoran Mamdani's father is trying to whitewash Islamic terrorism and basically referring to Islamic terrorists as soldiers. Like this is the narrative. This is the language. This is the rhetoric that these Islamists and jihadis constantly use. Listen to this. Listen to what they call suicide
A
bombers.
Columbia professor who called suicide bombers soldiers worthy of sympathy, not scorn. He said suicide bombing needs to be understood as a feature of modern political violence rather than stigmatized as a mark of barbarism. He framed jihadists not as depraved killers driven by Islamic jihadist ideology, but as a product of youth revolt against occupation born from the Intifada's ashes.
Do you see how they're trying to rewrite history here? So they're coming in, they're infiltrating academic circles, they're infiltrating academia, and they are trying to reframe jihad and Islamic terrorism by trying to use different words in order to downplay the inherent violence and barbarity of Islamic terrorism.
And you wonder why Zohran Mamdani wants to globalize the Intifada? This wasn't abstract theory. It was Mahmoud Mamdani's lens on the world, blending anti colonial rhetoric with relativism that excuses mass murder if it's cloaked in politics. He ties terrorism's roots to Western imperialism, downplaying the fanaticism fueling groups like Al Qaeda or Hamas. Zohran, the son, raised in this hothouse of radical academia, internalized these distortions like gospel. Zohran Mamdani's life was steeped in narratives that equate Western strength with villainy and Palestinian resistance with heroism, blurring lines between freedom fighters and fanatics. This paternal poison warps Zohran Mamdani's soul, a worldview where 9/11's architects aren't monsters, but symptoms of our sins demanding atonement through weakness and redistribution. It betrays New Yorkers daily, pushing policies that hobble police, flood streets with unchecked migration, and prioritize grievance over grit. Mamdani ties runs deep with radical Islamists like Linda Sarsour, the anti-Semitic activist who's mentored him, endorsed him, and maxed out donations to his campaign.
Did you guys see that video from Linda Sarsour that was leaked? I think it was yesterday. Even I tweeted about it. Let me pull that up for you guys because, like, they're not hiding the fact about, who they are and what they want, right? Um, Here, let me find it. Here you go. Like, listen to what these people are saying about Zoran Mamdani. Just pay attention to this,
Right now,
guys.
I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race. But I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just, that it's random that Zahran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zahran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zahran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC.
Remember, guys, so the CARE Super PAC, in that FBI document, it was revealed that CARE is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. So the Council on American Islamic Relations is actually an organization that was created by the Muslim Brotherhood in order to eventually take over the United States, right? By implementing their own policy. That's something that is literally proven. in that 1991 document that the FBI submitted as evidence in that United States court case, right? So they're not hiding it. They're not mincing words. They're being very clear about who they are and what they want. And by the way, guys, the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization that is actually banned in countries like Saudi Arabia. It's banned in countries like the United Arab Emirates and Egypt, right? So you have to ask yourself, how is it that an organization like the Muslim Brotherhood, okay, this radical jihadi organization, is banned in Muslim Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and yet they are able to operate freely in the United States, right? So you guys have to like keep an eye on this stuff. You have to pay attention to this and how these organizations are infiltrating. And no one really talks about the fact that Muslim Brotherhood is banned in, like, Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam, okay? 100%, pretty much like 99.9% Muslim majority country. They have banned the Muslim Brotherhood. And yet you have like key figures and politicians in the United States who openly advocate for Muslim Brotherhood linked organizations. And they're not hiding the fact that Zoran Mamdani is 80% funded by the Muslim Brotherhood, right? The CARE Super PAC, that's Muslim Brotherhood right there. Tyler, thank you so much, Tyler. I appreciate that. I hope you are enjoying this daily live stream. I hope you're able to learn something, gain some new information, and share this information with your friends and contacts, because the purpose of this channel is to raise awareness about Islamic terrorism, radicalism, not just in the Middle East, but in North America. Because one of the things a lot of um, North Americans haven't realized yet is that the war is not just in the Middle East, the war is already inside your borders. And you're seeing it right here, where this woman, Linda Sarsour, is openly saying that Zoran Mamdani is funded by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization that is banned in countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and yet they are able to openly and freely operate and get their own politicians into power in the United States.
Right now I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just that it's random that Zahran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zahran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zahran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zahran PAC in New York.
Do you also notice how for them it's all about Muslim, right? It's the Muslim vote, it's the Muslim donors, it's the Muslim this, Muslim that, right? Like these people are rallying around a religious identity as opposed to their American identity, right? I mean, wouldn't you think that, like, regardless of what religion you are, you might want to rally around a particular candidate because of the issues, right? And then, of course, by nature and by design, you would assume that regardless of your religion, you might have different opinions on an issue, right? So I mean, we never assume that Christians are going to vote as a block just because they're Christian, right? I mean, people, Christians have different political opinions on various things, and so just because they're Christian doesn't mean they're united. And yet, as you can see, when it comes to the so-called Muslim vote, for them, it has nothing to do with the issues. It's about who is a Muslim candidate who is going to advance our interests as Muslims, right? So they're even saying like, um, it's not like these people are not America first. They're obviously Islam first. They're Muslim first, right? And that's a very scary thing, guys, because they're making it very clear that for them, America is meaningless. It's all about Muslim and Muslim first, right? Like they're basically saying that we're not going to vote for any candidate if they're not Muslim. And they're not even talking about like, so what are the issues here, right? Like what are the issues on the table? And couldn't Muslims have different political opinions, and therefore, maybe certain Muslims don't want to vote for Mamdani based on a particular issue? And yet they're not doing that. They're just talking about the Muslim bloc, the Muslim vote. And guys, it gets worse than that as well. I mean, listen to what this guy is saying. I'm gonna go back to Bridget's video in a moment. But now that you have like this video and then this other one I'm about to show you, it's gonna give you a little bit more context, right? Like this, look at what this guy is saying in New York City, and look at like what issue matters to him.
How much power does the Muslim vote actually have here in New York?
So Muslim vote is about 350,000. In the last election, it was about 200,000. Only 7% voted. In the primary, 31% of the Muslims voted, and out of that, Bangladeshi Muslims voted 42%. So just now, imagine if 50% of us voted, if 75% of us voted, we would be coasting. They would be at our feet looking for us, looking to what to do for us, not just in symbolic, but in reality. That is the power of the Muslim vote.
How much power?
I mean, no mention of America, no reference to American values or nothing like that. Like all he talks about is the Muslim vote, and then specifically the Muslim Bangladeshi vote, right? Do you see how these people are starting to infiltrate your societies? They're not coming into America to assimilate. They're coming to infiltrate and invade, right? I was a politician for 7 years. I never campaigned in any language other than English or French. When I was in my official capacity as a politician, I never waved any flag other than the flag of Canada or Ontario, the province, right? But yet, and if, sometimes people would ask me, like, what's it like being like an immigrant woman of color politician? I would be like, I don't care. Like, I'm a Canadian politician. I'm Canada first, and my role and responsibility is to represent Canadian issues, right? I mean, this guy could have, like, when they asked him the question about, the impact of the Muslim vote, he could have very easily said, my religion is irrelevant. I'm American first, and we're here to vote based on our policies and our values, or as Americans, right? But instead, he just immediately dives into the Muslim vote and how powerful they are, and how they're going to vote as a bloc, and then everyone else is going to have to cater to the Muslim vote, especially the Muslim Bangladeshi vote. Guys, listen again. Like this is serious stuff. This is how invasion happens. Like, and he's totally shameless about this. He's completely shameless about this.
How much power does the Muslim vote actually have here in New York?
So Muslim vote is about 350,000. In the last election, it was about 200,000. Only 7% voted. In the primary, 31% of the Muslims voted, and out of that, Bangladeshi Muslims voted 42%. So just now, imagine if 50% of us voted, if 75% of us voted, we would be coasting. They would be at our feet looking for us, looking to what to do for us, not just in symbolic, but in reality.
Right? He's saying they would be at our feet. Okay. Again, a very savage visualization there, right? Like he's saying they're going to be at our feet, um, coming to us and asking us what they can do for us, right? And I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what is it that they want, right? What is it about the Muslim vote, um, right? I mean, what are their intentions, and what are they not actually saying in this video, right? Because again, you don't hear this from other communities. Like no one ever talks about the Christian vote, right? The Christians voting as a bloc. No one ever talks about the Hindus voting as a bloc because it doesn't exist, or the Jews voting as a bloc. It doesn't happen. And yet, for some reason, there are certain extremists, right? Like these are the Islamic radicals who put religion above all else, including America, right? Because for them, they don't care about America, they care about Islam. And so that's why they're focusing on the Muslim vote and the Bangladeshi Muslim vote, right? Like you're in America, who cares about the Bangladeshi Muslim vote? If you care about the Bangladeshi Muslim vote, shouldn't you just go back to Bangladesh then and then get involved in politics there? And yet, this is how they infiltrate, right? This is how they're infiltrating. So now knowing this, let's go back to Bridget Gabriel, okay? Because now this video from Bridget Gabriel makes a lot more sense when she's talking about this infiltration of these radical jihadists who are coming in and they are slowly getting access to your American political systems, and they are pushing their own politicians, right? And again, they're saying themselves that Zoran Mamdani is funded 80% by the Muslim Brotherhood. Listen to this, guys.
Hello, this is Brigitte Gabrielle. Zohran Mamdani, an Islamic terrorist sympathizer and democratic socialist, wants to be the mayor of New York City. A man so cozy with people that echo the ideologies behind the horror of 9/11. A vote for him is a spit in the face of every firefighter, every family who mourned, and every patriot who vowed never again. Mamdani's worldview was shaped by his father, a Columbia professor who called suicide bombers soldiers worthy of sympathy, not scorn. He said suicide bombing needs to be understood as a feature of modern political violence rather than stigmatized as a mark of barbarism. He framed jihadists not as depraved killers driven by Islamic jihadist ideology, but as a product of youth revolt against occupation born from the Intifada's ashes. And you wonder why Zohran Mamdani wants to globalize the Intifada? This wasn't abstract theory. It was Mahmoud Mamdani's lens on the world, blending anti-colonial rhetoric with relativism that excuses mass murder if it's cloaked in politics. He ties terrorism's roots to Western imperialism, downplaying the fanaticism fueling groups like Al Qaeda or Hamas. Zohran, the son, raised in this hothouse of radical academia, internalized these distortions like gospel. Zohran Mamdani's life was steeped in narratives that equate Western strength with villainy and Palestinian resistance with heroism, blurring lines between freedom fighters and fanatics. This paternal poison warps Zohran Mamdani's soul, a worldview where 9/11's architects aren't monsters, but symptoms of our sins demanding atonement through weakness and redistribution. It betrays New Yorkers daily, pushing policies that hobble police, flood streets with unchecked migration, and prioritize grievance over grit. Mamdani ties runs deep with radical Islamists like Linda Sarsour, the anti-Semitic activist who's mentored him, endorsed him, and maxed out donations to his campaign. Linda Sarsour shaped Mamdani's rise, pulling strings on a network of 108 organizations fueling his machine. She defends Sharia law, praises jihadists, and marches with those chanting globalize the Intifada. Members of her family are convicted terrorists rotting in Israeli jails. The same Linda Sarsour, who shares the same close circle of friends like radical Imam Siraj Wahhaj, an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, who once urged jihad on New York City. Mamdani and Sarsour were close with people who call on the destruction of the United States and advocate replacing our system with socialism, Islamism, and Marxism. And how about CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, the unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial in America's history, shares the same orbit. CARE, who supported and helped elect Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib to Congress, and is working to have thousands of elected Muslims into all levels of government on the federal and state level, including Mandani. Birds of a feather flock together. New York, you witnessed the greatest tragedy on American soil on 9/11. Electing Mamdani is handing the keys to those who sympathize with the perpetrators. He will prioritize radical alliances over safety, turning Ground Zero into a symbol of surrender. What message does that send to the ghosts of 9/11? To the heroes buried at fire departments at New York stations? It's a dagger to the heart of the city that rebuilt stronger, fiercer, unbowed. Mamdani is also a full-throated Marxist socialist, the poster boy for democratic socialists of America, dreaming of seizing wealth, crushing businesses, and remaking New York City in the image of failed regimes. His vision means breadlines and government overlords. Socialism and Marxism breeds dependency, kills innovation. Look at Cuba. Look at the Soviet collapse. New York thrives on capitalism's fire. Wall Street's pulse, Broadway's sparkle, immigrants chasing the dream. Mamdani's poison would extinguish that flame, leaving us in darkness, divided and destitute. New York, you deserve better than lies. Mamdani must be stopped at all cost, or New York as we know it will never be the same.
She makes an interesting point there. I mean, look at when I compare Toronto today to what Toronto was 4 years ago before Olivia Chow came in. Olivia Chow is the Marxist communist mayor of Toronto. Toronto is incredibly worse off. Property taxes have continued to hike. Um, Public transit is in shambles. Poverty is everywhere. Drug use has increased, and there is nothing there is nothing about Toronto today that is better off than where it was 4 years ago. Every single aspect of Toronto has declined. Um, and so New York should take that threat very, very seriously, right? Um, and again, when she's referring to Linda Sarsour, this is the video that she's referring to, right? The people who um, are funding Zoran, 80% of his funding comes from the Muslim Brotherhood. Listen
Right
to
now,
this.
I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just, that it's random that Zoran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zoran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zoran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zohran PAC in New York.
Right? So they're not
Right now, I'm a little more
denying
quiet
it.
because I'm on the quiet side.
They're not denying it at all. Meanwhile, I mean, this is what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, when you have Islamist politicians who are elected into power.
I lived in Israel. I've stayed for several weeks in Palestine. And I feel like, but despite that, I feel like having that sign up there, it's almost like having, naming a street Hezbollah Street or Hamas Street. I mean, Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate. And as a Christian, I would like to encourage peace. I'm not just being like, you know, pro-Israel in this and, you know, fight back and that sort of thing, but I would like to encourage peace and not violence. Actually, I'd like to quote from the words of someone who had the same enemy. It was Jewish people who killed Jesus. He was Jewish, but his fellow Jewish people killed him. And he said, the one who lives by the sword will die by the sword. And what I would like to encourage on the other side is peace. He is called the Prince of Peace, and he said, blessed are the peacemakers. And his death at the hands of Jewish people opens the door to peace between Jewish and non-Jewish people. So that's what I would like to actively try to encourage to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Spire. Sure. If you'd like to step forward.
I think the only comment I'm going to make, is not
Mayor?
looking for a rebuttal, is the best suggestion I have for you is to not drive on Warren Avenue, or to close your eyes while you're doing it. His name is up there, and I, spoke at a ceremony celebrating it because he's done a lot for this community. And I think it's quite hypocritical to know that you're approaching this podium when you yourself have videos on YouTube standing in front of my mosque saying the cruelest of things about Muslims, about the religion of Islam, because you are a bigot and you are a racist and you are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you.
There you go. So you have a Muslim mayor who is telling a white American Christian man that he is not welcome in his own city, even though the country was literally built by, white American Christians, right? And yet it's come to the point where now if you don't want to have streets named after Hezbollah terrorists, you're all of a sudden Islamophobic or a bigot or whatever the case might be, right? And do you see how freely they just throw out this accusation of Islamophobia? Again, as someone who was a politician for 7 years, never once in my mind did it even cross my mind to speak like this to a constituent ever. It's always with respect, right? And yet these people have no shame, right? They're openly just calling out anyone who doesn't like what they do as Islamophobic. And it gets even worse than that, guys. And I haven't even gotten to the most recent developments in Dearborn, Michigan. But I mean, a lot of residents in Dearborn, Michigan are starting to say that Dearborn doesn't really feel like America anymore. It doesn't really feel like they're living in an American city. And I wonder why. Listen to this, guys. Literally 5 a.m. and some mosque. It's 5 a.m. and some mosque is blaring the Islamic call to prayer in Dearborn, Michigan, an American city, right? Ask yourselves, guys, how many church bells do you hear in Saudi Arabia? Does anyone know the answer? Does anyone know how many church bells you can hear in Saudi Arabia? Let me know in the chat. I know the answer, but do you? The answer is 0, by the way. 0 church bells, because churches are actually banned in Saudi Arabia. And I'm not here to criticize what Saudi Arabia does. Saudi Arabia is a Muslim majority country. That's the kind of culture, that they want to have. Fine. I'm not Saudi Arabian. It's not my place to talk about that. But for Americans, do you not find it strange that multiculturalism and diversity only goes one way? Why is it that Americans have to focus on multiculturalism and diversity and yet other countries don't? and what does this mean about how they are infiltrating your communities? Because to me, I personally find it horrifying that there is an American city and you're hearing the Muslim call to prayer at 5 a.m. I mean, it's 2025. Are there not apps? Can people not just like have an app, and then whenever it's, the time to pray, the app can notify them, and then they can, go to whatever mosque? And by the way, guys, for those of you who are saying, well, this is what they've always done, what did these mosques do before the invention of loudspeakers? Because loudspeakers have maybe been around for what, 60, 70 years, maybe? So these loudspeakers, it's not actually a part of like Islamic custom or tradition. These loudspeakers have only been around for maybe 100 years maximum. So what the heck were they doing before that? And why is it that now all of a sudden they require loudspeakers, and they require, they need to like blast this everywhere? Matt Walsh actually made a very good argument about this, and I played his video in one of my previous um, uh, live streams. But let me pull it up again, because he is finally speaking out, and it's actually on this very issue of church bells versus the Islamic call to prayer. And I was just really glad, actually, that that he brought this up, because I mean, Americans need to wake up, right? Americans need to wake up to what's going on and realize how these Islamists are slowly coming in and trying to take over. Let me find this, because I want to play this clip for you. This is Matt Walsh. This was his response to Mehdi Hassan. Okay, and here, let me find it. Here we go. All right, I found it here. So I want to play this clip for you, because for those of you who, might be wondering, well, what's going on? Why is all of this happening? Matt Walsh gives a very good explanation of this, and he lays it out perfectly, right? He taught, and I would say that Americans aren't quite there yet. I mean, like, Americans, you guys are starting to notice that something's not right. You're starting to notice that these Islamists are getting more and more bold about, their intentions to slowly take over and basically turn America into an Islamic caliphate. But you're not quite there yet. You're not quite there yet. But I want to play this clip from Matt Walsh, because he points out a lot of things, and I'm glad personally that Americans are starting to wake up to the realities of what's happening.
So let's take, for example, Mehdi Hassan, the former MSNBC host. Now, Hassan doesn't have an actual audience. His show is typically pulling in fewer than 40,000 viewers in the key demographic, which is much, much less than I would get if I let the inanimate fish in the background host the show. Okay, if we just had the fish cam, if the only thing we had on the show was the fish cam, we would clear 40,000 views easily. There it is. So in lieu of attracting an audience, Mehdi Hassan has attempted to spend his time attacking Americans and Christians on behalf of socialists like Zohran Mamdani. And to that end, here's Mehdi Hassan's latest argument. Listen to this.
I think that if you can play church bells, you can pray the call to prayer. We are as American as anyone else, and don't take any BS from it.
So pay attention, guys. So Mehdi Hassan is basically saying that the Islamic call to prayer is just as American as church bells, right? Meanwhile, we've already established that church bells are not allowed to be rung in Middle Eastern countries. So do you see how this narrative goes one way, right? Why can they make the claim that the Muslim call to prayer is just as American as church bells, and yet no one can say that church bells are just as Saudi Arabian as the Muslim call to prayer. Do you see how the narrative is only pushed one way, but it's never pushed the other way, right? There's a reason for that, guys. There's a reason for that. Pay attention.
You're as American as anyone else? Really, Mehdi? Really, Mr. Hassan? You're as American as anyone? You're a Muslim who was born in the UK, came to this country less than 10 years ago in your mid-30s to work for Al Jazeera. Okay, is there anyone who seriously thinks that Mehdi Hassan is American at all, much less?
He forgot to mention that Al Jazeera is basically the propaganda mouthpiece for the Muslim Brotherhood. Maybe he doesn't know this, but Al Jazeera is the propaganda mouthpiece for the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood, again, is a terrorist organization that's banned in Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and some other places because they are basically a radical Islamic terrorist group. So Mehdi Hassan was literally working for the mouthpiece of a radical Islamic terrorist group, Al Jazeera.
As American as anyone else? It's even harder to buy the idea that Mehdi Hassan is an American if you actually listen to the things that he says, which no one does. So let's review. Before he got his MSNBC contract, Hassan started out as a propagandist for Iran who told his followers that non-Muslims were, quote, animals. Watch.
Islam.
Yeah, pay attention to this part, guys, because this is what they say about you behind your backs. Like, this is what these radical Islamists think about non-Muslims and think about Americans behind your backs.
Were, quote, animals. Watch.
In Islam, the ends do not justify the means. This idea is totally alien to Islam. In Islam, what is halal, what is haram is haram. We do not bend our law, our morality for our short-term aims. Never. And we never lose the moral high ground. If we know anything as Shias of Muhammad, as Shias of Ali, as Shias of Hassan, as Shias of Hussein, we know that keeping the moral high ground is key. Once we lose the moral high ground, we are no different from the rest of the non-Muslims, from the rest of those human beings who live their lives as animals, bending any rule to fulfill any desire. Once we do that, we are lost. Whoa. All of these ulama unanimously agree that at the very minimum, if Yazid was not a kafir, then at the very minimum, he was a fasiq, a transgressor, a breaker of Islamic laws, a corrupt individual, a tyrant, a killer, a drunkard, a dog lover, a music lover, a homosexual, a pedophile, a sexual deviant, someone who slept with his own mother, astaghfirullah. These are their views of these ulama in their books, not my view.
You know, this is just how Americans talk, according to Hassan. He's just as American as anyone else. This is as American as apple pie. This is what down-home, average, blue-collar Americans say. Yeah, you hear it at any 4th of July barbecue. People comparing Christians to cattle, calling us animals, ranting about music lovers in the same breath as pedophiles and people who sleep with their own mothers. They're all morally equivalent to the average American. Nothing more American than that. Apparently, it's also as American as apple pie to berate white people, who, you know, are the vast majority of Americans, including the people who founded this country. There was not anybody with the last name Hassan at the Constitutional Convention, okay? There were no Hassans dying on the battlefield in the Revolutionary War. Not a single one. There were only the kinds of people that Hassan despises, even as he tries to co-opt the country that they created. Hassan, of course, has made millions of dollars in this country disparaging white men and women. Most recently, after the 2024 election, here's what he tweeted. Good job, white men and women. You know, blaming them for Kamala Harris's defeat. So he comes to a country founded by white people that's mostly made up still of white people, and then he attacks them, invoking their skin color in the process for not voting the way he wanted them to vote. He just got to this country 5 seconds ago, and he's already saying, well, this should have gone the way I wanted. Who the hell are you, Mehdi? Who are you? Who cares what you want? Imagine if I went to Uganda or Nigeria and tried something like this. Imagine if I ran for office, lost, and then wrote on social media, "Nice going, black people. You really got some internalized black supremacy going on, don't you? You know, I'm just as Nigerian as anybody else." Now, in that scenario, how long would I last before they stoned me to death? 10 seconds, 20? In fact, what if I went to Hassan's actual home country, India, and ran for office, lost, and then said, "Great job, brown people. Yeah, you brown people. Really screwed up again. You know, I'm just as Indian as any of you are. Yeah, I just got off the plane last Tuesday. I'm just as Indian as any of you." What if I did that? How long would Mehdi Hassan spend crying about that? Would he ever stop crying is the question. Of course, Hassan also used to appear on television every other day, warning of the supposedly grave threat posed by white supremacy. He also celebrated a plane crash in Georgia, saying, "Make American planes crash again." This is the person we're supposed to believe is as American as any Christian who can trace his lineage in this country going back to the Revolutionary War. Just as American. Just as American as any American who doesn't hate white people, who actually wants our civilization, our system of government to succeed. This is the person who we're supposed to take seriously when he compares church bells to the Muslim call to prayer, which happens many times a day, starting around 5 a.m. and sounds like this. So this is the lie that they want you to believe, including even some conservatives will tell you this. They'll tell you that what you just heard there is just as American as a church bell. Just as the Muslim call to prayer at 5:30 in the morning, wafting through the air, just as American as, you know, a good old American small town with the church bell going off at noon.
I mean, that's pretty much next level gaslighting. You see how they're trying to compare the two when they're completely uncomparable.
That's what we're supposed to believe. And we all know that it's not true. We all know that it's not true. And the thing is, even if the call to prayer wasn't so obnoxious and so obviously disruptive to the lives of everybody living nearby, in this case it's in Dearborn, still doesn't matter. And even if church bells also rang at 5 a.m., which they don't, it also would not matter, because there's still a very good reason to say that in this country, church bells are acceptable in every city, while the Muslim call to prayer is not. And that reason is this, okay? Christianity built this country. Islam did not at all, in even the slightest way.
I mean, he makes a very good point, right? Again, all these people who are trying to compare the Islamic call to prayer to church bells, right? I'm glad that Matt Walsh calls it out, and he says, you know, Christianity built America. Islam did not. And so Christians have earned the right to play the church bell in any city they want, because the entire country is founded upon that, you know, Judeo-Christian value system and set of values, right? Churches are an integral part of the, you know, of American society. Mosques are not. And you know, it's okay to say that, right? And this is the challenge here is the Islamists want you to feel uncomfortable in saying the truth, right? They don't want you to acknowledge the truth. They want it so that if you criticize anything that they try to do, if you try to push back against them wanting to impose um, their traditions and their values and, you know, their Sharia law on you, if you try to push back against that, then all of a sudden you're the Islamophobe, right? It's not them invading your country, it's you being Islamophobic for not wanting them to invade your country, right?
Islam has nothing to do with America. If Islam had ceased to exist 300 years ago, this country would not have lost a single thing. There is not a single good thing about our country that we would not have if not for Islam. And if you doubt that, then go ahead and give me an example of the great gift that Islam has given to this country since its founding.
He makes a good point. I mean, no one is able to no one is able to provide one example of something that Islam has given to the United States that has improved it in any way, shape, or form, right? Um, and again, it's not hate speech. It's the fact. It's the truth, right? The same way that in certain countries, other countries around the world, Christianity had nothing to do with it. Yeah, algebra. That's the biggest lie. Algebra is something that was invented by Iranians, not Arabs. Like that's like the biggest jihadi lie ever. Algebra was invented by Iranians. People, go look it up. No one believes that like Islamist nonsense. Algebra was invented by Iranians, guys. And by the way, um, algebra has nothing to do with the founding of the United States, right? We're talking about the United States itself. And if anyone has claim to algebra, it's us Iranians. And yet you don't see us Iranians imposing our culture and our set of values on Americans and demanding that Americans live like Iranians because we invented algebra.
Give me the example of the thing that if Islam had ceased to exist 300 years ago, we would not have in America. Go ahead. I dare you. Mehdi Hassan, I dare you. Go ahead, name one thing. Go ahead. You can't. And that's why we can have our church bells, Mehdi. We earn them. This is our country. It is not yours, Mr. Hassan. Any actual American would understand that concept very well. If you want to hear the Arabic call to prayer 5 times a day in every neighborhood, you can go to one of the other 50 countries in the world that are into that. And by the way, if you want to hear church bells instead, most of those countries would not be nearly as accommodating. Now, when I made this point on X, Mehdi Hassan responded with this. He said, quote, 1 in 3 of the slaves who built this country were Muslims. They were here long before the Walsh family arrived. You know that if you studied history, but I know MAGA has an issue with studying. Oh, and I'm guessing you don't count slaves as people or Americans. So, and by the way, he followed that up with another tweet claiming, again, that Muslims are more responsible for building America than the Irish. So, as you could easily have predicted, Hassan responded with just layer upon layer of lies, just absolute delusion, heaped on top of delusion. So for one thing, this country, just to be clear, was not built by slaves. It wasn't. Much less the handful of Muslim slaves owned by the 2% of Americans who ever had slaves to begin with. The Industrial Revolution is what made this country wealthy, and it was spurred by the invention of technologies like the steam engine, the coke blast furnace, not the cotton trade or the slave trade. In fact, cotton exports accounted for roughly 5% of the overall GDP of the United States prior to the Civil War. 5%. So these people that say slavery built the country, 5% of the GDP built the country. Give me a break. There's a reason we became a much, much richer country once we abolished slavery. Not only did slavery not build the country, it actually held the country back, if anything. And again, if the handful of Muslims picking cotton in the fields had never been here, it would have had no impact on the country at all. Okay? The vast majority of infrastructure and industry in this country was built by the labor of free men. Okay, this country was built by free men. Every Muslim country on the planet, on the other hand, had slavery for exponentially longer. They relied on it exponentially more than the United States ever did. Which is why Western countries had to shut down the Arab slave trade by force. Look up the Africa Squadron sometime. We had a whole unit of the U.S. Navy from 1843 to 1861 devoted to suppressing the slave trade along the coast of West Africa. The Arabs clung to slavery like a fat kid holding a donut. They refused to let it go. It was such an integral part of their culture, and still is in some Arab countries. And by the way, the slave trade in Africa was extremely wide-ranging and global in nature. This is one of those stories that isn't taught in school, but it's absolutely true. In the 17th century, Barbary pirates from North Africa raided several towns in Iceland. Yes, Iceland. And they went into Ireland also. Okay, thousands of people were captured, transported to North Africa, and sold into slavery in places like Algiers. Many of the slaves died. Actually, by some estimates, more than 1 million European Christians were enslaved by Barbary pirates and slave drivers from the 16th century to the 18th century. Here's why I bring that up. number one, okay, if you're a Muslim, you got no room to be lecturing about slavery, none. Number two, Mehdi Hassan, let me ask you this. Given that we had a million white European Christians who were enslaved in the Muslim world for 200 to 300 years, would you say that white Christian slaves built North Africa? Can we say that white Christians built the Middle East? Why not? Answer that, Mehdi. I want you to answer that. Did the 1 million white slaves build the Arab world? If a few Muslims in the cotton fields built America, what can we say about the 1 million whites enslaved by Muslims in their countries? What do you think, Mehdi? What do you think? Now, this is a rhetorical question. Of course, Mehdi Hassan is a British Muslim who came here less than 10 years ago, so I don't expect him to know anything about my country. And he doesn't. He is as vapid and clueless as his non-existent audience would suggest. He has neither the integrity to tell the truth nor the intelligence to lie convincingly. He has come to this country to live off of the fruits of the labor done by people he despises. He's as ungrateful as he is useless. He's exactly the kind of immigrant that we should not allow into this country, a spiteful, lying, self-entitled brat with nothing to offer the country but demands and accusations. He's a bad person, although not a bad American, because he's not an American at all.
There you go. So there's what Matt Walsh has to say. And he makes a lot of very good very good points, right? He makes a lot of very, very good points there. Americans are fed up. Americans are fed up. And I mean, here's another American. I'm going to play this video for you. So here's another American woman, and she's sharing her thoughts about Dearborn, Michigan as well. And she's incredibly concerned about what's going on, and yet no one seems to be paying attention to her or her concerns, right? Let's go ahead and listen to this.
So being that Dearborn has been in the news recently, I wanted to get on here and just tell everyone that I was raised 10 minutes from Dearborn. I spent a lot of time in Dearborn, and I know what goes on in Dearborn. So coming from somebody who was raised right outside of Dearborn, spent a lot of time in that city, I will tell you that what you are hearing is absolutely true. Now there's two parts of Dearborn, the east side and the west side. The west side is about 50% Christian, 50% Muslim. The east side is about 90% Muslim, if not more. The east side is where you hear that mayor saying that he's putting that street up named after a tea organization or somebody that was a tea. Yes, that is the east side by Warren Avenue. So as a woman that grew up 10 minutes from Dearborn and spent the majority of my time in that area growing up, I will tell you that a woman cannot walk down the street in East Dearborn and not get harassed in some way or even spit on. I've seen friends of mine get spit on for not covering their hair and their face. You will not pass a building that is not written in Arabic. You cannot read anything. It's like being in a third world country. Now I know that there'll be pushback on this video and people will say that's not true. American women can walk down the street in Dearborn. Well, I'm telling you right now that it is absolutely true. And I have several times walked down the street in Dearborn and been harassed. My friends have been spit on. And it happens every day down there. And another thing, I remember growing up, after 9/11, driving down the street, actually on Warren Avenue in Dearborn, and everyone, all of these Muslims lined up on the street, cheering and screaming, beeping their horns. They were celebrating it. And that is exactly what they were doing. So yes, what you're hearing about Dearborn is absolutely true. Yes, it is.
Wow. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happening there, right? Um, Here's something else I wanted to share with you guys. So let me read this, okay? Um, so this is what's happening in Minneapolis, okay? So more foreigners from Somalia convicted in Minneapolis of stealing American taxpayer dollars. $50 million stolen, and you'll never guess where they were laundering the money to, Somalia. This is Ilhan Omar's district and her voters, sending millions of dollars in taxpayer money out of the country. The 74th person to be charged in the $300 million Feeding Our Future meal fraud case, Ahmed Naji Sheikh, very American sounding name, by the way. Ahmed Naji Sheikh is the brother of one of the most notorious defendants, Abdi Aziz Farah, another very American sounding name, who was recently sentenced to 28 years in prison. So Abdi Aziz Farah was sentenced to 28 years in prison. He was convicted with a group of others stealing $50 million of taxpayer money. So that's American taxpayer dollars, guys. So these people have not only immigrated to your countries, not only come and taken over your cities, are not only electing their own politicians, but now they're also taking advantage of the programs that you guys have, and they're literally stealing your taxpayer dollars and sending it back to places like Somalia. Now, his brother Sheikh is accused of helping him launder that money overseas to Somalia. So let's see what is happening here.
Of dollars in taxpayer money out of the country. Lou Goose has a look at the brand new charges today.
The 74th person to be charged in the $300 million Feeding Our Future meal fraud case, Ahmed Naji Sheikh, is the brother of one of the most notorious defendants, Abdi Aziz Farah, who was recently sentenced to 28 years in prison. Farah was convicted with a group of others of stealing $50 million of taxpayer money. Now his brother Sheikh is accused of helping him launder that money.
Now, in any normal country, this would cause a major backlash from the native population. But liberals actually want this. This is the greatest form of social justice. And anyone else who dares to speak out against programs getting robbed that are meant to feed hungry children are silenced and called bigots and racist and intolerant. And when you understand the entire game plan, it starts to make sense. Did you guys know that 25% of Somalia's GDP comes from remittance, money being sent from the United States to Somalia? So the strategy is to steal money from the American taxpayer, give Somali residents free housing, free food, free school, free healthcare, give them such a comfortable lifestyle that they can afford to have 4 or 5 children, while the native-born population struggles to have 1, 2 if they're lucky. And then as their population outgrows the native population, they have more political power. And then they can enact legislation that exclusively benefits Somali people. And the money that's not exclusively for them, they can just steal it through fraud. And the more money they get, the more they send back to Somalia, because that is their goal. You heard the guy say it at the Ilhan Omar rally. But speaking of Ilhan Omar, someone who openly hates America and declares her allegiance for a foreign country, here she is going to a church and berating a bunch of white people for liking Charlie Kirk, a man who stood up for America instead of Somalia.
I do believe those of you who are interested in rewriting this hateful man's history are full of shit.
Thank you. It is despicable that church would allow her to do that. And what's up with white liberals loving foreigners, telling them how evil they are for caring about their country? Ilhan Omar knows that their plan has succeeded. They have successfully beat the residents of Minnesota into ideological submission. Minnesotans, I guess, have just adopted the belief that their sole purpose in life is to serve the interests of Somalia. And Charlie Kirk, a man who stood up for America and American values, has to be characterized as an evil, awful person. And that's why Ilhan Omar goes on CNN, mocks Charlie Kirk's death, and says he belongs in the dustbin of history. Watch.
What I find jarring is that there's so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day to honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions.
I mean, it's scary, right? It's scary. And guys, on top of all of that, aside from the fact that these people are coming to your countries, they're not assimilating, right? They're invading. Um, they're changing the demographic of the neighborhoods. They are promoting their own jihadi Islamist agenda. They're pushing their own politicians. They're laundering American taxpayer money, sending it back to their home countries. On top of all of that, also just recently, this last weekend, there were now people that were charged for planning an Islamic terrorist plot, right? Look at this, guys. Federal charges for 2 Michigan men in foiled ISIS Halloween plot. Federal authorities arrested Muhammad Ali, 20, and Majid Mahmoud, 22, both from Dearborn, Michigan. Guys, Dearborn, Michigan. Does that raise a bell? Are you starting to see the pattern here? Are you starting to connect the dots, right? Federal authorities arrested Muhammad Ali and Majid Mahmoud, both from Dearborn, Michigan, for conspiring to provide material support to ISIS via firearms and planning a mass shooting in a Detroit suburb on Halloween. The suspects stockpiled AR-15 rifles, shotguns, handguns, over 1,600 rounds of ammunition and tactical gear, while scouting targets and training at gun ranges. The Joint Terrorism Task Force's investigation, prompted by online radicalization tips in July of 2025, led to raids on November 1, preventing the attack codenamed Pumpkin Day. So how sick do these people have to be to, plan a terrorist attack on Halloween, right? And again, they're all coming from Dearborn, Michigan, right? Dearborn, Michigan seems to be becoming a hub and a nest for Islamic terrorism, right? And people need to call it out. People need to call it out for what it is, because otherwise it's stuff like this, right? I mean, thank God this plot was foiled, but who knows what the heck is going on behind closed doors and behind the scenes, right? I mean, if they were planning a terrorist attack for Halloween, they were most likely planning on targeting women and children, right? Parents and their kids who are going out trick-or-treating. Why else would they want to do something like this on Halloween? What other reason could they possibly have? It is horrifying, right? Let's just look at some of this. Attorney General Pamela Bondi says our newly unsealed complaint reveals a major ISIS-linked terror plot. Again, ISIS, right? Islamic terrorism. ISIS-linked terror plot with multiple subjects arrested in the Eastern District of Michigan targeting the United States. Remember what that American woman said about the Eastern District of Michigan? Let's go back and watch that video again, guys, okay? Let's watch this video, because now when you watch this video from this American woman and she's talking about the eastern part of Michigan versus the western part of Michigan, how it's completely unrecognizable, right? She's not making this up. She's not exaggerating. There was literally a terror plot that was foiled just this past weekend because people in Dearborn, Michigan have links to Islamic terrorists, right? The FBI stopped a massacre before it could happen. 2 Michigan men planned an ISIS-inspired Halloween terror attack near Detroit, stockpiling weapons, scouting targets, and training at gun ranges. The FBI acted fast, followed the evidence, and likely saved countless of lives, right? So now the lawyers for these Islamic terrorists are trying to deny it, right? Michigan lawyer says a Halloween terror plot that FBI Director Kash Patel described never existed. There was a video. Let me find the I think it was Newsmax. They had here we go. Here we go. Let's watch this, guys.
foiled ISIS-inspired terror attack that allegedly would have involved a Halloween massacre in a Detroit suburb. Muhammad Ali and Majed Mahmoud, both appearing in court today, accusing of plotting a mass shooting codenamed Pumpkin, according to court documents. Search warrants on both men's homes and a storage unit recovered 3 AR-15s, 2 shotguns, 4 pistols, and more than 1,600 rounds of ammunition, along with tactical vests and other gear. The suspects are being held, and their next court appearance will be November 10th. Foiled.
So there you go. There's a quick overview. Meanwhile, this is what Dearborn, Michigan looks like. I mean, does this look like an American city to you? I mean, if someone told me that this was an American city, I would laugh at them and be like, "You're insane." And then on top of that, guys, on top of that, it gets even worse. Now we're dealing with, Omar Fateh. I think his election is today as well. And guys, again, I was a politician for 7 years, right? I was in politics for 10 years. I was an elected official for 7 years. Never once in my life did I ever campaign in any language other than English or French. You know, I did speak French because French is also an official language in Canada. But I never campaigned in any language other than the official language of Canada, the official languages of Canada. And at no point in my official capacity did I ever carry a flag other than the Canadian flag, right? The only time I would ever I would ever hold the Iranian flag is if I was demonstrating against the Islamic Republic, and that was done, in my off time, right? I never waved the Iranian flag in the Ontario legislature or anything like that because that's ridiculous. But look at what this guy's doing. Not only is he waving the flag of Somalia, the guy's running for mayor, okay? He's running for the mayor of a city. Mayoral politics have nothing to do with foreign policy. So why the hell does it even matter, right? Like why the hell is he even waving the flag of Somalia? Okay? Do you see how much these foreign actors have infiltrated, right? Like watch this, guys, just watch this. He's running for office in an American city to become the so-called American mayor of an American city, and yet he is waving the flag of Somalia.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Somalia. Somalia. Hiran State. Mawisle. Mawisle. Early voting was hadda illa November 4. I need your vote. I need you. Hadan Udkina, hello. We're gonna win.
I mean, he's running for the mayor of an American city, and yet he's waving the Somalian flag and he's yelling Somalia. That is horrifying. That is absolutely horrifying, guys. And for those of you who are saying, well, I have the flag of pre-Islamic Iran behind me, 100% I do. 100%, because I'm advocating for a free Iran. I'm advocating for the end of the Islamic Republic. I'm advocating for the freedom of my birth country. And I'm not a politician anymore. If I was a politician, I wouldn't have this behind me. But I'm no longer a Canadian politician. I'm a private citizen. I can do whatever the heck I want to do. But when I was a Canadian politician, my priority was Canada. And at no point did I ever campaign in Farsi, right? When I went through 2 elections, through 2 provincial elections, and I only ever waved the flag of Canada or Ontario. At no point, at any point in my elections, that I ever waved the flag of Iran and say Iran, Iran, because it is completely unprofessional. It is inappropriate. Quite frankly, I think it's treason, right? It's treason when you're campaigning and you're running to become the politician for a country. You put that country first. So to me, the fact that this guy is waving the flag of Somalia, right? Like, do you see how these people are infiltrated? And then not only that, he's speaking in Arabic. or whatever language it is he's speaking, Somalian, whatever it is, right? Why is he campaigning in a different language? Again, something that I never did. I only ever campaigned in English or French, right? And also, he's running for mayor. Okay, so for those in the comments who are saying, well, you can fight for other countries. Okay, I can understand if this guy was running at the federal level, right? If he was running at the federal level and his political position would have some sort of influence on foreign policy, okay, fine. There might be a case there to be made, right? But he's running for the mayor of a city. City mayors in America have zero input on foreign policy. City mayors in America have zero influence on international relations. And so it's literally completely unnecessary to do so. But you can tell, like, this guy, he's not campaigning based on his, policies or anything like that. He's campaigning based on his identity as a Somalian, and then he's speaking in Arabic, right? So people aren't voting for him because he's America first. People are voting for him because he's Somalia first. And for him, the interests of Somalia are more important than the interests of America. I mean, look at this one. Look at this one. Again, it's, Ilhan Omar here. Watch this, guys, right? Like, you would think this rally is in Somalia. This is actually what's happening in America today in 2025. Watch this, because to me, this is horrifying. There is absolutely nothing American about this whatsoever.
Ilhan! Ilhan! Ilhan!
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. آدي آد aan ugu faraxsanahay caawa in xafladan oo dhammaan dadka iskugu wada yimideen aadi aadaan ugu faraxsanahay in maxaa la dhahaa ii sheeg Cumar Faatax aan u taageero inuu noo noqdo duqa magaalada Minneapolis. Kisto yar Cumar haddii aan la kaftamo kisto waa ka maseersanahay aniga. Maybe wax badan aan ka maseersanahay. Because aniga xafladahayga markaan raayo leh Soomaalida saan ugu soo buuxsami jireen. Ka hor saan ma liigu imaan jirin. Marka waxaan u maleynayaa it's a good sign insha Allah inay wax fiican ku noqoto. Ama waxaan u maleynayaa haddii dadka badan oo isku dayay in community-geena iyo jaaliyadda Soomaaliya inta Minneapolis ku nool inay kala qeybiyaan inay caawatan suurtagelisay oo annagoo dhan aan u soo wada baxnay in hal cod aan ku wada hadalno oo aan dhahno annaga haddii aan Soomaali nahay waan ka soo tagnay in la kala qeybiyo waan ka soo tagnay annaga jinsiina isku dagaalno waxaan waddankaanayt ugu noolnahay Soomaalinimo.
Wow, I mean, this leaves me speechless, right? I mean, this is I don't know if these people are campaigning for America or for Somalia, right? Things have seriously gone wrong where you now have politicians, so-called American politicians who are campaigning in different languages and they're waving foreign flags in order to get votes, right? Multiculturalism and diversity is great, but this right here, this is not multiculturalism and diversity. To me, this is invasion, okay? Again, I was a politician for 7 years. I was in politics for 10 years, elected official for 7 years. Did I speak about Iran? Yes, in my spare time. Did I ever campaign in Farsi? Absolutely not. Never in my life did I ever dream of campaigning in Farsi or like speaking Persian, even though I speak Persian fluently. I never spoke in Persian in my elected, in my capacity as an elected official. I never campaigned by waving the Iranian flag, because to me that's treason. Um, and the fact that, there are now large immigrant populations that don't even speak English, and you have to speak to them in their native language, right? Like, to me, this is a failure of immigration, right? Like, this is mass immigration gone wrong. Um, and again, this goes back to the whole notion of people coming in to not to assimilate, but to invade and take over. Again, remember what this guy says, right? This guy who talks about how the Muslim vote and the Muslim Bangladeshi vote is a priority over Americans. Like, listen to this.
How much power does the Muslim vote actually have here in New York?
So Muslim vote is about 350,000. In the last election, it was about 200,000, only 7% voted. In the primary, 31% of the Muslims voted, and out of that, Bangladeshi Muslims voted 42%. So just now, imagine if 50% of us voted, if 75% of us voted, we would be coasting. They would be at our feet looking for us.
They would be at our feet. Do you see? So he's basically saying that we are going to vote as a bloc. And once we are in power, we are going to make our demands known, and you will be at our feet, right? And when he says they will be at our feet, he's referring to Americans. He's referring to the everyday average American, right? The people who've been here for generations, who've built the country. They will be at our feet. Do you see how this Islamist, like jihadi ideology works? Right? Like, are you now starting to like put all the pieces of the puzzle together? And then listen to what here's something else that I wanted to share with you, and then I'm going to go to this final video from one of my favorite human rights activists, Ayan Hirsi Ali. But listen to this, guys. Listen to what this man says about this study on mosques.
81%, so 81 of the mosques that he surveilled were in some way or other preaching jihadism and hatred of non-Muslims. And this is in the United States. 81%. 81%, so 81 of the mosques that he surveilled were in some way or other preaching jihadism and hatred of non-Muslims. And this is in the United States. 81%.
Wow. It's scary, guys. It's scary. But I want to share this video with you because Ayan Hirsi Ali, one of my favorite people, very, very outspoken, very intelligent, and she is one of the world's bravest human rights and women's rights activists, a survivor of Sharia oppression. She speaks out. She speaks out. And here, so she's speaking out in particular here about what's happening in Australia. But the scenario in Australia is similar to exactly what's happening in the United States and to what's happening in Canada. So I'm going to be focusing on a different country tomorrow. So you definitely want to make sure, if you're not already, like and subscribe to my channel. I go live at 12 noon Eastern daily, Monday to Friday, to talk about various issues relating to Islamic terrorism, politics in the Middle East. So if you've liked today's daily live stream, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. And I'm going to go again live at 12 noon tomorrow. But yeah, let's finish off with this video from Ayan Hirsi Ali because it is incredibly eye-opening. And she's pretty much speaking about the same things that I've been speaking to you about in this live stream. You've heard it from other people in other videos as well. And, Ayan has been raising awareness on this issue for a very long time. So let's listen to what she has to say.
If you want to invite people in from outside of Australia to settle and live in Australia and to belong, I think it's very important to have the conversation with them that this is the place you're coming. Here's what Australia is all about. And in order to belong, you are going to adhere to our norms, and we'll tell you why. But if you don't want to adhere to our norms, it's fine. We believe in freedom, but you don't get to live here.
What about the term multiculturalism? Because it's almost celebrated, particularly in places like Australia, and it's almost an embarrassment that our own old culture, in our case predominantly an Anglo culture with Indigenous underpinnings, but our own culture isn't good enough on its own, that bringing in all of these people have made us richer and better, but in some instances it's come at a cost.
I think the mistake that was made years ago was to apply that philosophy to immigrants. And immigrants who were settled in Australia and given citizenship were also told that they could assimilate or integrate on their own terms, hold on to their own identity. And unfortunately, the result of that for some of these immigrants, not all of them, but for some of these immigrants was to form their own ghettos. Enter radical Islam, which is an international ideology that seeks to transform everywhere it goes and tries to take over control and power. And the philosophy of multiculturalism empowered the Islamists into isolating Muslim individuals, convincing them that the Islamist worldview is their worldview and that is what it is to be a Muslim, and turning them against the local populations. The problem you're seeing in Australia is exactly the same problem they have in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in other parts of Europe, but we also have it in the United States. And so now I think is the time to say multiculturalism as a philosophy has failed. If you want to bring about social cohesion in a nation state, you emphasize what unites us. You don't emphasize what divides us. And multiculturalism is about emphasizing what divides us. And the way multiculturalism works is some of these communities, minorities, as they say, are to be afforded exemptions from the laws that majorities have to uphold.
Yes, and we see that in the United Kingdom too, don't we, with the debate about Sharia law, the debate about marriage to first cousins. That's been a feature of quite a lot of contention in the British Parliament recently. You mentioned the move by radical Islam across the West. What's their end game?
Of radical Islam. The radical Islamists, they want to bring about Sharia. Their end game is they've got this thing called the Caliphate, the Islamic State. That's their utopian dream. That's what they want to achieve. And they don't just want to achieve it for themselves in their own societies. They want to impose it on the whole world. In fact, after the Arab Spring, one of the new developments is the original countries of Islam, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Egypt, have banned, for instance, the Muslim Brotherhood, and have banned other Islamists from preaching or having to do anything with politics. And so you see in the source countries, in the original countries of Islam, Islamism is out. They've then migrated and they've come to Western societies that pride themselves in freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and so on. And so they've set up shop here, and they've decided they're going to start the Islamization process, or they're going to headquarter the Islamist project from the UK and from France and from Germany, and in this case from Australia, which is just strange.
Are you surprised at how quickly some of our societies have become radicalized and Islamified?
I'm not surprised, because for the last 25 years I've been banging on about exactly what you're talking about. So I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed that people like me were ignored, not listened to. So I think what we have to do is go back to emphasizing the nation state and what unites us, to identify the problem with the Islamists. It is this infrastructure that they have established that they use to Islamize the mosques, the schools, the Islamic centers. Break those up, and I think it is time to deport the radical imams, and it's time to give the citizens who are Muslim, who live in Australia, the options. Do you want to be Australian? then you're welcome and you stay, and this is who we are. And if you don't want to be an Australian citizen, as in an allegiance to the Australian Constitution and flag and norms and customs, then we are happy to let you go back to where you want to go back, the country of origin.
Well, there you go. She doesn't mince words again. Ayan Hirsi Ali, very clear about what she's saying and very clear about this threat of radical Islam and the end goal, which is creating this Islamic Sharia caliphate, right? So when you hear that, it now adds a bit more context, right? So when you have people in America who are talking about the Muslim vote and how they are going to come cater to our needs, you now understand what the end game is here, right? Because these people, to them, it's not about America first, it's about Islam first, it's about Sharia law first. Again, listen to what he says, this part.
Muslims voted 42%. So just now imagine if 50% of us voted, if 75% of us voted, we would be coasting. They would be at our feet looking for us, looking to what to do for us, not just in symbolic, but in reality.
What do you think? What do you possibly think he could want, right? What is it? What is it that Muslim Americans don't have that other Americans do, right? I mean, everyone is equal in the United States, and yet for some reason, these radicals, these Islamists are hell bent on promoting and pushing their ideology and their way of belief on everyone else. That is what civilizational jihad is. That is what Sharia law is, right? And he says it very clear, not just symbolic, but in reality. So there you go. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Goldie Show. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're enjoying the content and you want to, get more involved, you're also welcome to become a member. Memberships to my channel are open. We have a members only message board where we continue the conversation behind the scenes. And as always, I will see you guys tomorrow. And I will be doing another live stream later tonight at 8 p.m. For those of you who don't know, at 8 p.m. Eastern on weekdays, I go live with a number of other Iranians. We live stream a documentary about Iran, and then the Iranians, in the channel and myself, we criticize it and we give it a rating from 0 out of 10. That way, you guys will know, which documentaries about Iran are good, which ones to avoid, because there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there. So, as always, thank you for tuning in. And we will see you tonight and, of course, tomorrow. And as always, Payand Iran, Javid Shah.